Today on Woodworking Mcdaniel Style, we are going to learn how to make a well-known finish called wood butter, which is a food safe and easy to apply. And then we're also at the end of the video going to talk about how to make our own abrasive pastes that are similar to Yorkshire Grit or Triple E Ultra Shine. So stay tuned. How I got there is I made a rolling pin one time and I spent a lot of time getting this real nice polyurethane or varnish finish on this rolling pin. And then when I went to sell it to a customer that wanted one, she said, man, I wish that it didn't have this finish on it. And I'm like, well, it'd be a lot easier for me to make that if I just put a wax finish on. So I use what a lot of people call wood butter. And it's basically beeswax and mineral oil, food safe mineral oil. And it's really easy to make. There's recipes online, and if you look at the recipes, a lot of people will use a double boiler, and I'll show you how I melt mine because I think the double boiler is a little more difficult. So I heat with wood in my wood shop, and so it's perfect during the winter to make this mixture, and it's a very little effort. I'll show you how much beeswax. I don't know how much this measurement is, but I'm gonna put it in here so you can see reference. So that is about the amount of beeswax that I put in there. And then I would just take mineral oil and pour that in until it's at close to the top, about like that. And so that is the ratio. And I don't know if that's like a 8-to-1 ratio, something close to that. And I tighten that down, and then I'll go put that over on a rack on my wood stove. And when I get done, that ratio will give you a nice solid paste. It's not solid, it's, I'm gonna say it's a texture of warm butter or, maybe like a toothpaste. And it's really, that's a preference thing for you. So if you want it, I've got one here, I made a bigger, this is a bigger mix. So for these containers, I think these are the 8-ounce containers, I think that's right. This amount of beeswax is about what I use, about one of these scoops in the bottom. And that is a little bit thicker, but it's really just a preference thing. And all you do, I don't want you to get, there's recipes out there and it'll say have this much, play with it. Really, it's just if you want it to be thinner, softer, add more mineral oil. If you want it to be a thicker, just add more ratio of the wax. Now I got my organic beeswax off of Amazon. If you've got bees, you can try to clean that beeswax up. I failed with that. I failed to say that no matter what beeswax you get, they sell it in pelletized little small pellets or bars, and I would recommend getting the pellets because they melt much faster and it'll make the process much easier for you. So here's my wood stove, and I put it, you don't want to put this directly on the stove like that. That'll cause it to burn the wax, and that's why you can use a double boiler in your house. But I would, some people put all the wax and stuff in a thing and then try to pour it into these jars. I personally would just put your ingredients in the jars, and when this melts, you can just shake it up whenever it's melted. And then when it sets up, it'll be solid. Here is the wax melting. You can see less and less yellow pellets. You would melt this until you see no yellow pellets left at all. I'll show you in some other videos using this wood butter. It's a really easy finish. Here's some examples of some products with just this wood butter applied to them. Hopefully you can tell how good of a finish it leaves if you want a food safe finish for your customers or for your products. You could use it for cutting boards and other products like that. Wood utensils, cutting boards. You can get pumice stone in the 2F grade, which is a little bit more coarse, and it's a white powder, okay? It's a lava, I think lava volcanic stone is what that is. And then there's pumice stone, which is a 4F. And it's also white. It's like a white powder. Hopefully you can see that. I don't think you need both of those. If you want one, I would just get one or the other. I didn't know what I was buying, so when I bought these abrasives, I just went ahead and got all three. And then you can get the rotten stone or the triple E. And it is a dark, almost like a black, a dark gray, or close to a black type powder. And it is the finest of the three, so that would be like your final one that you would use. Now, if you're buffing out a finish, you know what I mean, you put on a varnish or some kind of a surface finish, and then you're buffing that out, you could use that rotten stone and it would cause no problems. But if you are wanting to use it on, like I do, just on wood that has not been finished with some kind of a surface finish, like a polyurethane or something, you got to be careful, because if you add quite a bit of the rotten stone, and what I do is I just add some of this powder, whichever one of these. You know, I can make different mixes with the 2F, the 4F, or the rotten stone, and you just add the powder to the mix. So if you add a little bit of that powder to the mix, and then right before it sets up, you know, just make sure you stir it in so that you've got that abrasive throughout that mix. And then what you'll have is there's the rotten stone mix. So it's a paste that has that abrasive in it. So you just put a little bit on your napkin or whatever application you use and turn your lathe RPMs up, and you sit there and just abrade and smooth that surface out. But you would not want to use the rotten stone paste on like a maple or a pine or an ash or some kind of a light wood, because it's going to get in those ingrain pores, and it's gonna stain it and make it like a dark look. So you don't want to do that. So what you would rather use if you use the white powder, like I showed you, the other ones have the white powder, and so that paste will be very the pumice will create a nice natural look, and so you can use it right on the lighter woods and it won't cause an issue. But that's something else you can do with this wood butter, is you can add those abrasives in. I will say, like I said, you don't need all of them. You could probably just get whichever one you want. Maybe like a 4F pumice would do everything you need. If you want to buff out darker woods like walnut or even cherry and stuff, I don't think this will cause you a problem, the rotten stone. And if you're buffing out finishes, it won't. But there's a lot of powder in this. I think it wasn't that expensive. It was like $10 per thing. But this is going to last me more than my turning career, so you don't need this much. If they sold it in a smaller volume, that's probably what I would get. But if you're in a turning club, maybe you guys as a turning club could look at getting, and this is a well-known brand. I forget how you pronounce that, but it's a well-known brand, Beelan, I think. You could get this in a turning club and just kind of separate it, and each of you take a quarter cup or something out of here, and you could make a lot of mixes. A lot of paste mixes, abrasive paste out of that, and split the cost if you wanted. You could also do that with your beeswax that you buy. I think this was like $10. I just bought it off Amazon for beeswax, and that's gonna make me a lot to even give to my customers. I will also say, I don't know if I failed to mention it, but if you don't want a food safe finish, you can add the oil and the wax, but you can also add mineral spirits. You can add mineral spirits, that's a solvent. And if you add the mineral spirits, or you can add turpentine. Some people actually think turpentine is food safe. That's up to you. I mean, I'm just saying some people aren't opposed to it. But you can add those, and I like the turpentine smell. But so if you add those two here, you don't actually even need to do the double boiler or the stove. If you add enough solvent, mineral spirits or turpentine, you can just put your mixture, your wax and your oil and your turpentine or your mineral spirits in there and put it out in the sun, at least if you have a summer. Here in Southern Ohio, you know, most of the summer months, I can just put that out on my porch out in the sun, and it will be melted by the evening. And so you don't even need to have the double boiler. So that's kind of nice. But then you might, you know, food safe things always debatable with a lot of people. So if you think turpentine's food safe, you could do that. I will say, if you're not concerned about it being food safe, instead of using mineral oil, you could use boiled linseed oil. You could put tung oil in. You could put Danish oil in. So you don't have to use mineral oil. So you can put your wax and then put whatever oil you want, and you can even put the solvents in to thin them. So just play with the recipes, see what you like. Add the paste if you want a paste to it to make a final sanding abrasion. And hope this video is helpful on how to make some wood butter to use on your products and on your turnings. So we showed you how to make the wood butter, which is just mineral oil and beeswax. I talked about the abrasive paste that you can make. One of them that is really popular is Yorkshire grit. I just looked on Amazon and it's like $22 to $25 on Amazon for probably about half as much as this amount right here. And you can look up the ounces. And the other product that is, and people love Yorkshire grit. The other product is the Triple E I was telling you about, Triple E Ultra Shine. Also, I've seen a lot of people love that product. And it was like for about this much of the product, it's maybe a little bit more than this. It might be more like this container full. It's like $40. So they're pretty expensive. They would last you a while. So if you don't want to fool around and make these, now I could make this for probably less than $1. You know, this is probably less than $2. You know, including the powder and the wax and the mineral oil, I can make them, you know, that cheap, so you can save a lot of money. But if you don't want to fool with doing all this mixture and melting, these two products, I've read a lot of reviews and people love them. So these will do you well. I think that what you can mix yourself, you would be very happy with also. If you like this content, please consider subscribing to Woodworking McDaniel Style.